lesser magistrates. And the subtitle is A Proper Resistance to Tyranny and a Repudiation of Unlimited Obedience to Civil Government. So yes, there is pushback ahead. If the High Court rules against the states, against Tennessee, against Governor Haslam's emissary in the halls of the and at the podium of the federal Supreme Court. This gentleman making his arguments yesterday, reported in the local press. Well, my name is David Toulis, and we're involved in pushback against numerous tides and in favor of local economy. And our theme is that we need to love our neighbors and buy local, and that we favor, with a kind of intelligent prejudice, that we favor the local supplier, the local manufacturer, the local provider of services over that of the national corporation, the multinational business even. And so we think that near is better than far, and small is better than big, and simple than complex. And in the footnotes, I would ask it as a question: is corporate better than personal? Well, the answer is no. And what about this one? Is the abstract better than the physical? Well, you've got it right. You've got the footnote number 2 there on your intellectual palate, and the answer is no, that in fact physical is better than abstract. Now, of course, these are not always true. These aren't universals, but they are working together, helping us make the argument for local economy vis-a-vis, which is to say face-to-face, right, facing off against the national economy, the national narrative. And that is what we explore here at Hot News Talk Radio, 1240 a.m. in Chattanooga. By the way, it's live online at hotnewstalkradio.com. And on your smartphone, get the TuneIn app, smartphones only, the TuneIn radio app, and just type in 1240 WSDT. Those are our call numbers and letters. WSDT. SD is reference to Saudi Daisy. We are a Saudi Daisy Tennessee station here in North Hamilton County and Chattanooga. And I do thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time here at Nuganomics.com, the number 3 show. The number 1 show, I just can't get past the number 2 slot, but the number 1 show is held by Russell the Kid with Digital Drive every weekday at noon, an uber intelligent program analyzing the marketplace, particularly the tech sector, in terms of your interest, right? Your interest is well defined by our very astute analysis by Russell every weekday. And we're here at Nuganomics.com. The number 2 show, the one ahead of me, I'll just grant that probably is Sean Hannity. And we have Sean Hannity, we've got Laura Ingraham, and George Noory overnight, and many other great shows. Don Imus in the morning, the scrofulous, ancient, hoary radio character, a very gruff man with a great staff, right? He's a man improved by his staff. I've had my nose this morning and much of yesterday in a hole. The hole is a series of volumes. It's the Tennessee Code annotated. And I've been thinking and reading. I'm starting to read about 25 cases that deal with a question. And the question is, I know you think this is going to be really obscure. How is it that David Toulis spends his leisure hours? And you say, well, what a bore. What a boring person David Toulis must be. But I'm really provoked by a case involving the Nome of Strawberry Plains. And what we have to think about is how great are our liberties? Are they as small as sometimes the good people lead us to think that they are? Or do we really have liberties that we just didn't know were there, and in fact have not been uncovered by generations of attorneys? And when I read as with a master's degree in English, I have a slight gift in reading and understanding text, and having been trained in that and having been an editor all my life, I started giving my attention to the Tennessee Code annotated, Title 55, the driving and motor vehicle volume. And what I'm finding there is that there's much more liberty on a particular area, an overlooked area of personal right that has not been defended by the legal craft. I dare say probably in several generations, because the driver's license statute is probably from the 1930s at the latest. It could be from the 1920s. I haven't not done the legislative history research on this question, but what I'm finding is that there is a kind of a system that exists which almost to a man has us convinced that there is no right to travel by car. I used to think that there was. I had earlier cases, been involved in this issue for some time, and in fact has given lectures on the whole question of the right to travel versus the right to drive. And my thinking is that the system that exists in Tennessee is not as airtight as the Department of Safety, the local sheriff's deputy, the local lawyer guild, the judges, and even some of the opinions would suggest. I think they're in some of the appellate court cases on this question of your right to move about freely as a matter of constitutional right. I believe that some of these even the rulings contain in them what are called legal fictions, and legal fictions cannot have the force of law. That's just a simple truism. Only law has the force of law. You know, we talk a lot here about the rule of law, and I do believe in the rule of law. I think the good people hold to the rule of permit. Everything is permitted nowadays. Nothing is ever done freely. Everything is done by permit, and everybody expects to be told, well, you can't do that unless you have a permit. It's almost as if we've been trained, we've been dumbed down, as it were, by generations of officials telling us, well, you're not free to do that. And, well, wait a minute, how come you're doing that? And often, I dare say, often the things that we're told are not areas of liberty, are declared to be not so by people who have not ever looked at the statute, right? So that means you're having officials and officers and enforcers and bean counters telling you things that are simply not enforceable. And my own experience in this, which is very limited, suggests that problem is indeed widespread. Well, if you're going to try to track down your lost rights, you may have a problem also with tracking down your lost dollars. And if that's the case, you need to have Eric Pelton, the numbers guy, the accountant, look at your books and your financial affairs. He runs E.J. Pelton Company, Eric Pelton does, and has been 37 years in the business, a CPA. He will help your cash flow improve in your business and account for your inflows and your outgoes and any tax liabilities you may have. Eric Pelton, his number is 622-3156, 622-3156. He says that you, my listener, should call him and say, hey, I'm the Nuganomics.com listener, and I'm thinking of starting a business. Could I chat with you for a little bit about my plan? And it would be a good introduction to a very sound man who, as you expand later, in a couple of years from now, you will want to have him at your service. Also wanted to mention Trade Bank of Chattanooga. We're members of Trade Bank, the smarter way to barter and to improve your cash flow. If you're a member of Trade Bank of Chattanooga, you trade among 400 area businesses in every field of every size, some major players, some small fry like us. We're Hot News Talk Radio. We're just a little radio station, but we have a big idea and a big concept and a big defense to make for ancient things such as liberty, such as prosperity, such as marriage. We are the station that makes an unapologetic defense of marriage, connecting it with not just with God, but with capital and capitalism. And we want there to be much more capital in this city, more people. Well, the Nome of Strawberry Plains has pointed several good things out to me. And one of them is a provision that no one ever knows is in the Constitution. It's at the back, right? It's almost at the footnotes. And it says, the Declaration of Rights hereto prefixed is declared to be a part of the Constitution of the state and shall never be violated on any pretense whatever. And to guard against transgressions of the high powers we, the people, have delegated, we declare that everything in the Bill of Rights contained is accepted out of the general powers of the government and shall remain forever inviolate. So what that's saying is that there are general powers given to government, right? They're general, right? But what powers are not granted? Well, every power that would wrongly tamp down or touch upon or damage or reduce the value of any of the constitutional rights. And those rights are accepted out of. All right, accepted means to be cut out, right? From it's like the word excise, right? Excise tax is a tax that cuts off a shaving of something. It cuts away. So the Bill of Rights cuts away at every point where you are concerned, my listener, from the general powers. Where your right exists, there is no general power against it. Think about that. Think about what that means. And have you, my listener, have you thought of any way exercising your constitutional rights? Well, I was looking this morning at the ACLU website and the American Civil Liberties Union, and there's a good little post on something that touches at least the interests of Tex, our Cowboy Up with Tex program host here at Hot News Talk Radio, and it's the rights of a photographer. Your rights as a photographer are as follows. I mention this because our motto here at Hot News Talk Radio is that you report, and the world decides. And reporting is not just calling us with a tip about something, but it's calling us to say, here's some images of something you need to see. Here's some video you need to see. And of course, the video would end up probably at Nuganomics.com, the website for the people who matter, right? It's not a popular website. Okay, don't think it's going to go viral going with me. It's not. And that's because my website is for people who matter. And they are, of course, in a terrific minority. Well, your rights as a photographer include, for example, when in public spaces where you are lawfully present, you have the right to photograph anything that's in plain view, okay? That includes pictures of federal buildings, transportation facilities, and police. Such photography is a form of public oversight over the government and is important in a free society. When you are on private property, of course, the owner may set rules about taking photographs, and you have to obey those. Police officers may not confiscate or demand to view your digital photographs or video without a warrant. The Supreme Court has ruled, there's a link, that police may not search your cell phone when they arrest you unless they get a warrant. Although the court did not specifically rule on whether law enforcement may search other electronic devices such as a standalone camera, the ACLU believes that the Constitution broadly prevents warrantless searches of your digital data. It is possible that courts may approve the temporary warrantless seizure of a camera in certain extreme exigent circumstances, right? Exigent means circumstances of high necessity and great importance, such as where necessary to save a life, or where police have a reasonable good faith belief that doing so is necessary to prevent the destruction of evidence of a crime while they seek a warrant. Now, it's a crime to delete your data. Police may not delete your photographs or video under any circumstances. Officers have faced felony charges as evidence tampering, as well as obstruction and theft for taking a photographer's memory card. Now, of course, if you're truly interfering with legitimate law enforcement operations, like standing 2 feet from the injured person in a car accident and you're in the way of the stretcher bearer, well, you are in the way. But note that the right to photograph does not give you a right to break any other laws. And you're advised to be polite and never physically resist. And the question, here's the kicker, the thing that gets this to home plate, and that is the question. What question should you ask? What question? And that is, officer, am I free to go? Because if you're not free to go, that means that all your Miranda rights apply. This is David Tulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. We're going to talk about regional government.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If you have the DT, shake, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia, you need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook, open Sunday. Cell Surgeon, we bring your phone back to life. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better pain-free life. And Dr. Ross can help. At Ross Chiropractic, failure is not an option. For over 40 years, Dr. Ross, a graduate of the prestigious Palmer College of Chiropractic, prided himself in helping and healing. The Ross method of chiropractic care is unique in developing a treatment designed just for you. And Ross Chiropractic makes this promise to you. If he believes that he can help relieve your pain, he will guide you to another health practitioner to assist you. Feel better now. You owe it to yourself. You really do. Call Dr. Ross now at 954-9591. That's 954-9591. And visit Dr. Ross at 7405 Shallowford Road, Suite 320. Ross Chiropractic, helping your body heal itself. Because when your spine's in line, you will feel fine. Call 954-9591. That's 954-9591 for Ross Chiropractic.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. Police, state police, and the National Guard all helping keep the peace last night in Baltimore, shaken by violent protests over the death of a man in police custody.
The city police did a great job. The mayor, we're all cooperating. We're all a team.
Maryland Governor Larry Hogan saying, though, he's not ready to say the city is back to normal. Supreme Court justices taking on the issue of capital punishment.
A year after a botched execution in Oklahoma left a convicted killer writhing in pain, the Supreme Court considers whether a drug used in lethal injections is okay. This case was brought by 3 convicted murderers who say a new 3-drug combo violates the 8th Amendment protection from cruel and unusual punishment.
Fox Radio's Jared Halpern. And the Dow is down triple digits after a disappointing GDP report showing our economy barely budged, growing only 0.2% in the first quarter. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
Thrive 2055 is proposed for the Chattanooga area to be a 16-county regional para-government. It is thought that counties can't do things on their own, that their governments are not capable of prospering sufficiently. In my analysis of Thrive 2055, I try to look to the financial interest behind it. And it seems to me that there's an organization needed to better lobby the national government in Washington. That is why there is a proposed gaggle of counties in 3 states, which will be able to lobby better for federal money in part of a national government which is effectively bankrupt and is becoming increasingly dysfunctional. To talk a little bit more about Thrive 2055 and the whole idea of regional planning, regional government, if you will, of sustainable development, or regional sustainable development as it's called, is John Anthony. He has a book out. It's called Inside the World of Planning. It came out in 2004. And we can get you a copy of that, a digital copy of that book at no charge later if you just ask us. John Anthony is 69 years old, and he runs, for the past 3 years now, Sustainable Freedom Lab. It's a website where his work appears, analyzing phenomenon such as Thrive 2055, which is what we here in the Chattanooga area are looking at with some mystification and some interest. Now, my name is David Toulis. Our show is Nooganomics.com. I have analyzed this not extensively, but I think with sufficient intelligence to make it helpful to analyze. John is a writer, and he's recently moved from elsewhere to McDonald, Tennessee, in Bradley County, and we're going to ask him why. John Anthony, thanks for joining us here at Nooganomics.com.
David, thank you very much for inviting me today.
Well, tell us, first of all, why did you move? Where are you from originally before moving here, and what is so attractive about the Chattanooga area?
Well, there's a lot attractive about Chattanooga. I envy you living here and having spent a lifetime here, a very long time here, David. I come from Pennsylvania. Before that, I lived in New York. And my fiance, Emily, and I moved down here. Actually, we bought a home here in October of 2014. By the way, it was 2014 when I wrote that Inside the World of Planning, not 2004. It's a little bit
I'm sorry.
That's good. But we came down here because we have friends who live in Polk County and also in Hamilton County. But also economically, you talked about finances. It makes a lot of economic sense to live down here. You have much lower tax rates down here. You have much more freedom and liberty among citizens. You have fewer regulations and zoning requirements and commitments down here than you do in other states in the country. So we found that was just delightful. In fact, when we moved down here, one of the things that we noted right away is there was this program called Thrive 2055, and I didn't know an awful lot about it. It's a region, and it's an attempt to regionalize 16 counties in 3 different states here, Alabama and Georgia. And what struck me was, we've been there, done that. We've seen what happens when you begin to regionalize counties. They've attempted to do this in Pennsylvania. It's being done up in New York. And we've also seen the results out on the West Coast, in Oregon, Washington, and California. And so many of those rights and those freedoms, those zoning less areas that we have down here that were so attractive, I don't know if your listeners are aware, but much of that is going to disappear, or at least be truncated, if we go into this notion of having a region. You mentioned something that was rather telling. You said, well, gee, there can be a value to a region. And you're right, because you can get groups of counties together, you can have a stronger voice, you can go to Washington and make your points. That's good if that's in fact what happens, but actually it's more the other way around. The purpose of forming a region is so that Washington can tell you what to do, not so that they can listen to hear what it is that you have to say. If you look at the concept of the different counties, I've had an opportunity to meet some wonderful people in Polk County, in Bradley County, and Hamilton, and also up around in the Knoxville area. And what's interesting to note is that they're all different. They have different ways of looking at lives. The businesses there are all much different. The skill set of the employees and the talent base is much different in each community. And that's important, because if you look at what it is that's made the United States great, it's the to be able to spin on a dime and respond to what the economic needs are at any given time on a global basis, whether it was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, whether it was flight, whatever it might be, we were able to respond to those needs. Well, now here we are, and regions kind of turn that whole model on its ear. A region says, instead of having a Polk County who has this type of a worker and a Bradley County who has this type of a worker, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of homogenize the whole thing. We're going to decide where people need to travel, where they need to live, what a real working community ought to look like. And we'll develop that in this thing called Thrive 2055. So what you will see, if this is allowed to continue, and it's not there now. I mean, right now we can say, wow, we get a voice, right? Well, I'm not so sure you're going to get much of a voice. As you move forward, what you're going to see is this. You're going to have a central government in a large area, which might well be Chattanooga, the way this is shaping up. And that's then going to amalgamate the communities around there. Well, what happens when you do that? Let's say I have a fireman, and that fireman lives in Chattanooga, and I don't know what the fireman's salaries are here, so I'm just kind of guessing. I'm just making these up right now for sake of an example. Let's say they make $100,000 a year. Well, let's say you have a fireman or a firewoman out in Bradley, and let's say they make $80,000, and in Polk they make nothing. Maybe they're all volunteer. But what happens when you put those communities together, instead of having a combining of resources so that you can eliminate redundancies and have economies of scale, what happens is those communities come together, all of those salaries go up. They don't go down. So how do we pay for those? Well, we pay for them by increasing property taxes. We pay for them by beginning to restrict where people can go and where they can live, so they don't have to send services out so far. And the net result is property prices, costs, cost of living begin to rise. Now, why does that matter? Well, it matters because somebody like me who moved from Pennsylvania, and I now have a much nicer home that I had in Pennsylvania, and my taxes are 1/11 of what I paid in Pennsylvania. I am now paying 1/11 of what I paid before. I also have a house that is about 500 square feet larger than what I had before. I have more land than what I had before, and I'm paying about $250,000 a year less per home than I did before. So all of that you're going to begin to see vanish. Why? Because regions have to define what these communities look like if they're going to be able to function successfully. And as they do, they create growth boundaries. And those growth boundaries limit where you're able to live in homes. In other words, they create denser populations, or we call densification. That densification drives the cost of housing up. Well, what happens if suddenly houses become a lot more expensive? As the price of houses goes up, what happens to the people who live there? They need money. They need more money now to get into the same house. In fact, according to the National Association of Home Builders in 2014, right here in Tennessee, every $1,000 that a house price increases, that's 2,500 people that can no longer afford to buy a home. Now, when you have 2,500 families that can no longer afford that home. Now, in an area like—
Do you mean afford that home to buy or afford that home to live? Because there's a difference.
Median price of purchase. Thanks for clarifying that, David. Yeah, they can no longer afford to purchase that home. So what happens is, as these prices rise, and by the way, the average price is not $1,000 they go up. It's more like $50,000 and more. So if we add $50,000 and we got 2,500 people who couldn't buy it at $1,000, that equates to about 125,000 families that will no longer be able to afford a median price home in that area going into the future with programs such as Thrive 2055. What happens to employers? I'm running a business. I need to hire people. But the very people that I want to hire, guess what? They can't afford to live where the region wants to put my factory any longer. So how do I get people in there? I've got to begin to import them from outside of the community, and all of a sudden we've got smog, we've got CO2, we've got long lines of traffic driving into the city to go get the job that supposedly we were going to be able to walk through a regional plan.
Well, John Anthony, this is a very dystopian view of what could happen, is what you see is happening with Thrive 2055 and other regional planning efforts. It seems like it would take a very, very long time to actually make it happen, because there are so many people in places like Polk County who are, you might say, insular. They're not well traveled. They're provincial minded, like I'm trying to be. They're not. The larger world doesn't really interest them. They're not impressed by outsiders. Not impressed by big programs, big cars, big people, big names. And well, it seems to me that it requires a multiple generational effort in this program to make what you're describing come about? What is the time frame in view of organizers of such programs as Thrive 2055?
The people who organize programs like this are taking a long-term view. Without going into an awful lot of detail, I urge your listeners to go to a website called America 2050. That's put together by a transit authority in New York, actually, and they've developed programs in the United States where they've actually divided the country into 11 separate regions. So just study that, familiarize yourself with it. I'm not going to go into it anymore, but take a look at it. These are long-term plans. When we talk about having a program here in Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama, it's called Thrive 2055. It's not called Thrive 2016, it's 2055. So how long will it take to accomplish these things? Over a period of decades before this begins to happen. But you'll see some of the downturn, some of the negative results very quickly. For instance, I like to use Portland, Oregon as an example. Portland, Oregon, before 1990, was an extremely affordable community. It was lovely. It was one of the most affordable urban areas in the United States. Late 1980s, beginning of 1990, they went on a smart growth program. Smart growth is very similar to what Thrive 2055 would like to bring to Chattanooga, Tennessee. They haven't laid out the plan yet, but the precursor is already laid out, and it's on their website, and you can see that. So in implementing this, one of the thoughts was we need to bring into Portland now low-end affordable housing. We need to make that affordable. So, okay, the plans were launched to create 6,500 affordable houses. Now that's a wonderful goal. So here we have our new plan, but we want to take care of the folks who can't afford to buy a house full price. Meanwhile, they had the densification that I talked about a little bit earlier. That means we created growth boundaries. So you can't do a lot of building outside. Let's say that would be maybe Polk County down here.
Preserving farmland, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, preserving farmland and preserving land and period for open spaces. So you can't build out there, but you can build inside that growth boundary. Well, what happens to property houses if I begin to shrink the available land, property values, if I shrink the available land? The prices go high. As the prices go up, the house prices go along with them. So here's what happened. Between 1990 and between 1997 in Portland, Oregon, once they brought this Thrive 25 type program in there, the housing prices went so high that they saved, sure enough, they got 6,500 low-cost affordable housing came in, but 80,000 houses that had been affordable beforehand had risen so high in prices that the lower-income families could no longer afford to live there. Net result was they began to exodus the city or live on the outskirts of the city. That's the kind of a future that we're looking for here in Chattanooga.
Well, wasn't that planned for in Portland, that the people who couldn't afford the new houses, was it not part of their plan that the poorer people would live further out in the hinterlands?
Not at all. The plan wasn't to have the poor people to be part of the urban area. They wanted to keep everybody right in there because it's going to be one big happy family. Remember, they don't want people, they meaning the planners and the people who fund this, which is very often the federal government through HUD or the EPA. Those folks believe that we have to eliminate urban sprawl where people move into the hinterlands, and we want them to be congealed. We want these people to be densified, preferably near some kind of local transit. So that's what the smart growth plan looks like in Portland, but it's also what it looks like in Bethlehem, where I came from, with a program called Envision Lehigh Valley. It's also what it looks like in upstate New York, where they're putting 8 different counties together. And I could go, it's what they look like in northern New Jersey, in South Carolina, in Florida, the Florida 750 program. All over the country, wherever you go, you're going to find it's exactly the same program. Now, Thrive 2055 has not yet said this is what our program looks like, but what else can it possibly?
The organizers are waiting for they're waiting for more public input.
Well,
it's in that stage.
Quite a while trying to get some public input on that, because that's a rather interesting note. This program has been around since about 2012, I think. They've been trying to gain public input, and so far they had 1,137 people fill out a survey to identify what it was that they prefer to have in their community. Now they're going to affect, this program will affect 1 million people. You're telling me you had 1,137 people fill this out in 2.5 years of trying? I would consider that an utter failure. This is David Toulis here at Nuganomics.com. Thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time. We're talking with John Anthony, who in 2014 came out with a book, Inside the World of Planning. It's an ebook now available for free, and I'm holding up for my viewer on his smartphone a series of lectures called Straight Talk About Planning, part of John's work to understand an often baffling and confusing and very deep
culture, if you will, a culture of the good people, as I call them. And they're the good people because they are involved in intervention. So, John, is it fair to say, even though these programs such as Thrive 2055 are premised on so-called public-private partnerships, that they are in fact a form of state intervention in the local economy? Is that fair?
Very much so. It's a mixture of terms here. We're saying we want to have stakeholders, we want to have engagement by the community. So most of what you hear from planners is we want the people to be involved. Well, if you want them, why aren't they involved? The number of businesses that are involved are actually a handful. That's where the public-private partnerships come in, which should be a wonderful program. We've got the government and you have individual companies working together to try to help communities prosper, has really turned into just a cronyism, backroom deals, and a handful of people making a lot of money while other companies struggle to try to get a piece of a piece of the economic pie.
Well, the economic interest that's in operation is not a marketplace interest, as Adam Smith describes it in his book of The Wealth of Nations. He says that people who are businessmen who make a big talk about being civic-minded often have collusion in view, and they're often fixing prices, and they're wanting an edge against competitors. They want control of their marketplace by being involved in politics. And so it's more the idea of the visible hand rather than the invisible hand. And there is a pretense, though, in Thrive 2055, John Anthony, that Thrive 2055 is the invisible hand. We're just trying to find the outline of that hand. We want to see where the local economy wants to go, where the actors in the local economy want to go, and we just want to help government react to what the marketplace is doing. Is that fair? Is that a fair? I mean, is that something that's really possible, that Thrive 2055 will simply react to the marketplace?
It wasn't founded for that purpose. I mean, look, anything in the world is possible. I'm a possibility thinker, so anything is possible. But if you look historically, where is that happening? Where do we have a situation in which the community came together through a regional program, and now they're informing the government, and the government's changed their policies to meet the needs of that community? I think it's the other way around. The federal government decides what the community needs in order to prosper, and then they tell you. You know, the philosophy behind most of these programs is really rather simplistic. We're concerned, we meaning the government, the government is concerned about the environment, they're concerned about the poor, they're concerned about standard of living, global competition. So they have in turn developed a program called Sustainable Development that's supposed to sustain the earth for future generations. And the way that we do that is we have to limit what you can do with that earth. So if I go into a local community and I say, well, you know, you have a local public official there, and he has the authority to open that community up and bring businesses in if he wants to. But what if those businesses destroy the environment? Well, we don't want that. What if there's no zoning codes or limited number of zoning codes, and you can do anything you want with your backyard? You got 4 acres of land, and you can dig a pond there if you want. Well, that might create additional sediment. That might upset the environmental balance. We can't have that. Therefore, we need to take some of these choices away from local citizens. Not a lot. We're just going to take a few of your choices. Now, I think one of the reasons programs like Regional Sustainable Development have been able to prosper and they've been able to get away with it is because a lot of Americans are willing to give up a few choices if they think they're going to get things like, you know, safer environment, money to help the underprivileged in America, and even help build a better standard of living. They're willing to do that. What we don't understand, because we haven't really been comparing notes across the country, is that not only do these programs like regional sustainability not accomplish the goals that they set out to do, they actually make things dramatically worse at the same time that they are taking free choices away. They're damaging what used to be called the free market. And I say it used to be because we really don't have a complete free market in the United States any longer. So these are the things that we want to win back. And the way we win them back, honestly, it begins with community members, talking to community members and understanding the implications of what happens if we bring programs like Thrive 2055 to our community before they start, not after.
It seems like your position, John Anthony, is for the market, but it's also very democratic. You appreciate, and you want the listener to appreciate, the fact of diversity. Think about here in Hamilton County, the kind of people who are here. They're much more liberal politically. They almost voted for against the abortion restrictions, but people in rural areas such as Polk County voted strongly against abortion. And there's in Polk County, as I was suggesting earlier, there's a kind of insularity, a kind of primitive provincial way of thinking, which is a great virtue. It's not a problem. even though I think as a cosmopolite, I used to think it is a problem. But really, provincialism and localism are strengths. They're not weaknesses. And regionalism would tend to look down upon those. We've got something better for you. Don't cling to your old ways. Don't cling to your little roads and little streets and just stay in your county. See the world. Come to Chattanooga. Explore other things. Be a different person. It seems to be that these programs don't really appreciate people as they are.
Yes, I couldn't say it better than you did, David. I have a very dear friend of mine who lives over in Ocoee, in Polk County, and we've had many conversations. The good people in Polk County are very much in favor of. They want to run their own lives. They don't want to be regulated. They don't want zoning.
They don't have zoning.
Then they don't have it, and they don't want it. Now, and that's a fine thing, and I think that we need to respect that. We can't turn around and say, well, we have to if you're going to put a backsplash in your kitchen, we need a zoning code that says you have to have extenders on each electrical outlet, which is going to drive the price of the job up, even though, in fact, you don't even need the bloody thing anyway, because the backsplash is already a dielectric. So the reality is we have communities out here in our wonderful state who don't want to be told what and how to live. We also have communities like Chattanooga who are more than willing to give up, some of their choices in turn to have what they consider more consistency in the environment, or maybe they're worried about the view shed or the sound shed or something. Okay, then they get the right to do that. But those rights are all gone when a higher power comes in and sets up an unelected regional council. And then they decide what the rules have to look like in each one of these different communities.
Is it fair to say that some of those means of leverage are not law, not actual statute or ordinance, but soft law, somehow public policy, which is a very vague area where things are made to be done?
Yes, soft law, and when those laws and those soft laws, when this is being directed by a group of people over whom you have no say. And I'm talking now about a regional council. When you have a regional council that says what you can do if you live in Benton and what your backyard has to look like if you live in McDonald, then you have lost your property rights. And those property rights are paramount.
We're talking with John Anthony, who runs Sustainable Freedom Lab and has recently written a book called Inside the World of Planning. My name is David Toulis. I wanted to mention that in your support of local economy, don't throw away that computer, but have it repaired, and have it repaired at Affordable Computers on Highway 58. There between the Arby's and the Taco Bell, you'll find this repair shop run by local people. There's a second branch of Affordable down in Fort Oglethorpe on Battlefield Parkway, right near the Holcombs. And for $160 or so, you can get a refurbished Dell laptop, name brand. If you buy a new computer, Affordable, anything past $600 will beat what's out there, because it custom makes every computer with standard parts, which means it can be repaired anywhere in the world. A lot of things you buy, a lot of computing equipment you buy now is made with priority parts that are unique to a particular manufacturer, and they're not standardized, and they cannot be repaired. And Affordable would make a computer just for you. You don't have to know about computers to have one made for yourself, right? It can be custom made and you not know the first thing about how they work. The number to call is 499-1975, 499-1975. My name is David Toulis. We're talking with John Anthony, and we're going to look more at Thrive 2055, the whole idea of regional planning. The heavy hand of the public sector imposing itself upon the private sector, a not free marketplace. We're here for local economy and a free market. That is our theme and our goal. This is David Toulis. I've got some things I want you to hear.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
NASCAR being brought to you by River City Auto Exchange, 5503 Highway 153 in Hickson.
Check it out this Sunday live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Fox News Talk 1240.
Pure, honest, fair, and respect. Just some words that come to mind when you think about how you want to be treated. And that's how you're treated at Rivermont Pure. Rivermont Pure in Rivermont, Chattanooga. Serving your vehicle needs for over 30 years.
Now that's a long time.
Owner-operators Charlie and Tommy always put your needs first. Yeah, go ahead. Get an estimate from one of those big guy impersonal car repair chains.
No way!
Then bring it to Tommy and Charlie at Rivermont Pure. Chances are they'll beat their price and get your vehicle back on the road faster than you can say,
Our customers come first. Hi, this is Charlie.
And I'm Tommy, owners of Rivermont Pure. We're here to serve you.
Rivermont Pure, the auto repair guys. Featuring ethanol-free fuel. Located across from Rivermont Elementary on Hickson Pike. Rivermont, Chattanooga. Rivermont Pure.
Rivermont Pure, that's where I've always gone to get my car serviced. My husband and I trust Charlie and Tommy. They always treat us right and give us a fair price. And they get the job done right the first time. Thank you, Rivermont Pure.
Call 485-3375. That's 485-3375.
Okay, you get your taxes done by a franchise, but you're just a number. Your preparer might have had a 9-week course, but he's a number 2. Are you creating prosperity for your customers and yourself? EJ Pelton clears the thick underbrush of taxes, helps make your way straight. Don't let uncertainty dampen your local economy spirit. Look, come home. Let EJ Pelton Tax Service handle your taxes. Eric Pelton is the Chattanooga and Saudi Daisy tax specialist with 37 years under his belt. Eric Pelton also does bookkeeping and accounting to help you reach your entrepreneurial and financial goals. Confidential advice, consulting, and other services. Yours for the asking. EJPelton.com. That's EJPelton.com. Call 332-3339. That's 332-3339. Think ahead.
All systems go.
Got a printing project on deadline? Advantage Printing in Brainerd offers the highest quality one-stop service in Chattanooga. Graphic design, printing, addressing. Don't create a mailer unless you first check with Alan about the latest postal hassle. He'll handle the whole thing for you. Advantage Printing. Your advantage is in our name. 4031 Brainerd Road next to the Bilo. Print digital or offset, wide format, engineering drawings, start to finish. Advantage Printing. Check the details with Alan. 629-1800. That's 629-1800.
All systems go.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life.
They say you can always tell a Texan, you just can't tell them much. But you can try. Cowboy Up with Texas on Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 Eastern, and he comments on the day's events. So, agree or disagree, call in and tell a Texan.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Saudi Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News. I'm Harley Carnes. The emotion this morning in Baltimore was relief, where only 10 people were arrested through the night for violating the curfew. The governor, Larry Hogan, thanked the people for their cooperation.
We had a few people arrested last night, but very little violence, very little issues. 24 hours makes a heck of a difference.
Attorney General Loretta Lynch took the job with a plate full and talked to reporters in just the last hour. Live now to Washington, CBS's Allison Keyes.
U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch offered condolences to Freddie Gray's family, but she says what she calls senseless acts of violence must stop, and they are a grave danger to the community.
I've directed this department to provide any assistance that might be helpful in restoring calm and resolving the unrest that broke out across the city.
She says a respectful conversation must be had nationwide about how law enforcement officers interact with those they serve and protect. Harley?
The big Baltimore story of the day may be the Orioles White House game about to begin with no fans allowed in Camden Yards out of security fears, something that's never happened in Major League Baseball. Pope Francis today said that men should not be sexist. Don't make the same mistake as Adam, he said, who blamed Eve for the apple. And he said there should be equal pay for equal work among the sexes. 3D printers can save lives by quickly producing a splint to allow a baby to breathe.
This isn't finished yet. The judge brought them back in for what's called an Allen charge. And an Allen charge is just to tell the jury, to urge them to go back to deliberations and keep working at it.
That is WCBS TV's Jessica Schneider talking about in New York, the jury that says it's stuck in the trial of Pedro Hernandez and the killing of Eitan Pates, a 6-year-old little boy who went missing back in 1979. Now, Heather Bosch with her story.
I'm Heather Bosch. The babies have a disorder that causes their windpipes to collapse. So University of Michigan Dr. Robert Morrison and others use 3D print technology to create little splints they use to prop the baby's airways open. The surgically implanted splints will eventually dissolve.
This is the first time this process has been utilized to create a medical implant for treating a life-threatening disease.
Doctors say the first baby to receive the 3D implant 3 years ago appears to be cured.
Oklahoma's Attorney General Scott Pruitt says finding the right drug combo for death row executions has been difficult.
Pentobarbital, sodium thiopental have been used in the past. If we had access to those, we would use those drugs. We do not. We continue to try to access those drugs. We cannot.
So the plan is to use midazolam to sedate the condemned, then 2 other drugs to end the life. In Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, police shut down the town square for a couple of hours. A mailbox was vibrating. The bomb squad came, very carefully opened the box. Someone had dropped a medical alert pager inside. On Wall Street, the Dow down 65 points. The Nasdaq's off 27. This is CBS News.
Inventory is everything. Product sitting on shelves is money sitting on shelves. Managing our inventory is key. That's why I use KeepStock Solutions from Grainger. KeepStock Solutions help keep just the right amount of inventory on hand. KeepStock Solutions help keep the cost down. KeepStock Solutions keep me a happy camper. What's the key to better inventory management? KeepStock Solutions from Grainger. Get it? Got it? Good. Visit Grainger.com/KeepStock for more information. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I'm Jay Farner with some great news on how you could save an average of $3,000 per year on your mortgage. Call Quicken Loans now at 800-QUICKEN to see if you qualify for the government's Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. The HARP guidelines have changed. There's less paperwork and often no appraisal required. Call 800-QUICKEN. That's 800-QUICKEN, or visit QuickenLoans.com.
Important terms and conditions apply. Calls for cost information. Equal housing lender. Licensed all 50 states. And MLS number 3030.
A Texas high school English teacher has been officially honored as Teacher of the Year.
Shanna Peebles, who teaches refugees from places like Iraq, Burma, and Somalia, says American schools make a commitment to all students.
We will be here and we will help you.
The president said the event's a chance to thank teachers who give their all for their students.
Not just these teachers, but all teachers.
After a Rose Garden photo op, all the teachers being honored broke into song.
We are education junkies. It's in our DNA.
Pam Coulter, CBS News, the White House.
Just in, no change yet in primary interest rates from the Federal Reserve. The Fed said today in its statement that there's still some weakness in the U.S. labor market and the economy, a sign that the central bank is struggling to try to proceed with a plan to raise interest rates. They hope to do it perhaps later in the year. Harley Carnes, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.
Our show is Nooganomics.com. We cover local economy and the free market. There's an essay that's out there that you may have already read. It's called "Why Google Made the NSA," and there's a quote in a review of this work by the author's name is Nafis Ahmed. He's an Arab. And he says, a major function of mass surveillance that is often overlooked is that of knowing the adversary to such an extent that they, meaning the good people, that the adversaries can be manipulated into defeat. It is a feedback system. The surveillance watches to manipulate. Once surveillance reveals what the public is thinking, they, the organizers behind it, devise propaganda that manipulates what the public thinks in the direction the manipulators desires. Of course, that's where you have the creation of false fronts, and you have also false flag operations that are often very violent and deadly, which bring, of course, the need for more surveillance and the more intervention in the marketplace, not in terms of the economic sector, but in the sense of police operations and federal spying and law enforcement. Well, my name is David Toulis, and the marketing of Thrive 2055 is a kind of surveillance upon us here in Chattanooga. It has only good ends, though. We're supposed to believe, and I want you to know, though, that good ends exist elsewhere. And one good end and good purpose is to be found at Delia's Authentic Mexican Restaurant. Maria, is a great immigrant here in the Chattanooga area. Cooks the best food. It's authentic. It's Mexican. It's from her home country. If you are new to the South or new to the United States, being connected with Volkswagen in some way, make sure you jot down the name of Delia's in South Saudi Daisy and go for dinner or lunch there. It's a very unpretentious place. You might not even see it driving by. It doesn't look like any fast food place or any chain of any kind, and so it might be easy to miss. But there it is on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Maria has a rich selection, loaded nachos and crazy chicken, tamales, quesadillas, all those things. And on the menu, there's a picture so you can know what you're ordering, since you haven't maybe had this kind of food before. And today the special is the taco salad. It's $6.25. It's $1 off on the chicken or beef. And mention that you are on the man who listens on the radio, and you'll get a free iced tea for your wife. Okay, sugared or without. My name is David Toulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. Love your neighbor, buy local is the slogan. It's the raison d'être, if you will, the reason for being here at our station. We're talking with a writer and a man who's given a great deal of time thinking about what is called urban development, or more accurately, regional sustainable development, which is a concept that seems to have the planet in view, but overlooks the common man who is from a particular place and has a deep history in that place, maybe. And the view is, the view of Thrive 2055 is of improving government. It has all the appearance of improving self-government, improving local governance. The word is often used that way. And yet, John Anthony, who runs Sustainable Freedom Lab, which is a website at the end of it, sustainablefreedomlab.com, is a great skeptic. And he is telling us about how these systems work and what we need to know about them, because a program like those elsewhere in the country is being operated here. John, welcome to Nuganomics.com.
Thank you.
Well, tell us about the idea of marketing. Is the Thrive 2055 idea a great idea to which local officials are apparently flocking in numbers, or is it something that has to be sold amid sales resistance among local people?
Well, a lot of people are flocking to it, but not necessarily for the right reasons. And a lot of people are questioning it, and they're being kind of deterred from asking the questions. You made a really good point. You said, is it a marketing effort? Yes, I mean, it is. It's the selling of the concept of Thrive 2055. And as in any selling situation, you have to question things. It doesn't mean that just because it's being sold, it's a bad idea. It might be a really good idea. But this is a program that if it was half as good and did half of the things that it says it was, for instance, it's going to reduce the number of vehicle miles that you have to travel. It's going to make it easier to get back and forth to work. It's going to bring economic prosperity to your local community, affordable housing so that everybody will have a lovely home to live in, and increase your transportation options. You can walk and hike and bike and all kinds of good things. Well, who wouldn't want anything like that?
Maybe take the local train?
Or take the local train. If it's not there, we'll put one there for you. So all of this sounds delightful, but why then is it that over 2.5-year period, the best Thrive 2055 has been able to come up with is about 1,150 people or less filling out a survey. And the reason they've come up with so few people is because it's really not marketed in a way that's going to capture the attention of people. I think there were 300 or 400 I think is being generous, actually involved from the community saying, this is what we want the program to look like. This is after trying dozens and dozens of different communities to try to bring people into it. So where are all the people flocking to this program if indeed it's so wonderful? What's happening is much of Thrive 2055 is being done behind the scenes and under the radar. Now, one good example of that was when they rolled out these 4 scenarios. And they said, we need people to vote on which scenario they'd like. That was this 1,137 participants that they had. So they voted on which scenario. Well, if you looked at the 4 scenarios, the way the adjectives were set up, the way the wording was, even the way the coloring of where each of those scenarios fell, it was so stacked in favor of scenario number 3, it would have been virtually impossible to get a result back that didn't say. And son of a gun, when the results came back, they were published not too long ago. What do you know? Most of the people like scenario number 3.
Well, what's in scenario number 3, John Anthony?
That's basically your high density mixed use dwellings near transit. It's transit oriented living. It brings new transit, light rail into the community. It densifies the communities that you do have, creates an urban boundary for people to begin to do more building and more construction inside the boundary and less on the outside.
Meaning more apartment complexes and fewer individual family homes?
Exactly. More of Sacramento, more of San Diego, more of San Jose, more of Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, bringing more of that right here to downtown Chattanooga and the 16 surrounding counties.
Well, here's an argument I think that has almost gotten me, and I'm willing to see some merit in the Thrive 2055 idea, if I understand it correctly, and that is that if we have Thrive 2055, 10 years, 20 years down, we'll all be more neighborly. We'll have more relations with people. We will walk to work. We will walk with maybe a radio flyer wagon to shop with our young children, and we'll pass neighbors and wave to them. And they're sitting on their porches, maybe reading a Kindle or a newspaper, and they're out and about. There's a kind of an old Mayberry kind of view that seems to be offered, where people live and work together, and that's part of our zoning reform in Chattanooga, which is called form-based zoning, which has the same ideas, some of the ideas that I'm describing, ideas that are espoused in Jane Jacobs' 1961 book, the life and death of American cities, great American cities, where there's community, and she describes that, and she describes how architecture prevents communities from forming and prevents livable streets from being occupied by people who pass through them. So there's something in that direction that the Thrive 2055 people are trying to create to bring back a kind of sense of community that we don't have anymore with cars. Cars prevent communities from being formed. They prevent you, John Anthony, from knowing your neighbor because you just drive by in a hurry home for dinner or on your way out, and you don't really communicate because you're traveling by car. So, this is an attractive idea. Can you somehow interact with that proposal, John?
Sure. My neighbor and I just went on a vacation together and had a good time, so it hardly took us away from one another. My brother-in-law lives up in, or to-be brother-in-law lives up in upstate New York. He came down here. We all got together and we took about a five-day vacation together. So no, the car doesn't necessarily have to keep you apart. It can actually bring you together. And when we talk about trying to reenact an 18th or early 19th century village lifestyle in downtown Ottawa, well, that's okay. You get to do that if you want to. But you also have the choice not to live like that if you don't want to. I just had somebody come in and do some work in our home the other day. And I said, gee, where do you live? And he described it was back in Polk County. And I said, oh, is it over near Benton? Oh, no, we're further out than Benton. Well, I couldn't figure out where he was, but I guess you go out another 5 or 6 miles and up a hill and something like that. And you know what? He loves living out there. And statistically, a lot of people like living out in suburbs and beyond the suburbs. We got all kinds of data that shows that. When the planner comes in and says, there's this rush of people wanting to live into urban areas, take another look at that survey and find out where that came from and how that was conducted. Because the reality is, there are very few indicators saying that anybody wants to move into the city. They want to move out of the city again.
Well, the argument of Nuganomics.com, John Anthony, is that the marketplace is the real and only sustainable idea. The marketplace. Other forms of life and you might say of culture that don't have the marketplace but have some form of coercion are not sustainable. Can you talk about the idea of sustainability and where that word really belongs? Does it belong with the public-private, pro-government kind of people, or does it belong with people like you, defender of the free market?
Okay, first of all, there is no definition of sustainability beyond one that was set back in 1987 in a book called Our Common Future. And that was kind of that's a generic definition that you can't really tell what it means. We're going to provide the needs of our society today without infringing upon the needs of tomorrow, without compromising the needs of people to live their life tomorrow. Okay, well, how do you do that? I mean, am I supposed to live in a bubble so that tomorrow they'll be able to live outside the bubble, or is it the other way around? So we don't really define that. So sustainable has to be in terms of some kind of a measurable. Am I going to make something last longer? Am I going to make my house last longer? So instead of a home that's going to need repair, let's say within 20 years, it'll take 40 or 50 years. What in the world are we talking about with sustainable? And what are the costs? So I say, David, I hate to throw that back, but it's kind of like, what do we mean by sustainable? The second thing I think you have to look at is this idea of local authority and local choices. If you live in a beautiful county like Polk County, and I only talk about that because I've had an opportunity to drive through there and see there and spend time with friends over there. These people simply don't want to be involved with Thrive 2055 planning schemes and zoning schemes that tell them what their backyard has to look like. So they get to do that. And they have a lot of those little rural communities and rural areas. I won't mention the name of it, but there's a restaurant there where I know a lot of my friends get together. Usually on a Friday night, you'll find them there, and they'll stay there till 1 o'clock in the morning, just like you probably saw back in a little crossroads village in the late 1800s. So we have that already. We don't need a planner to come in and create it for us. Then you have Bradley County, which is completely different. They're just negotiating. I think the commissioners over there, should we bring in the new ICC code, international codes for planning for 2012? Okay, so they get to make those decisions, and maybe they're going to do that, and maybe in the end they're not going to do that. But it's a local decision that they get to make. So there's room for all of that. If you want an urbanized area, move into Hamilton County. Parts of that are very urbanized. Move outside of the city, and some of them are very suburban and very rural. So those are the choices that planners would like to begin to define for you and tell you what it looks like. And the more we create a community where you've got transit-oriented living, think of what that means. It means I need to live near where there's a train, otherwise how am I going to get to work? The move is to take people out of automobiles because we're being told that the automobiles deter.
It's unsustainable.
They're unsustainable. They deter relationships. They spew CO2 into the air. So we really need to get out of those things. Okay, well then what's the alternative? The alternative is you have to be able to ride a bicycle, or you have to be able to live close enough to transit that you'll be able to walk there. And that's already been defined for you. If you go on the websites of the regional programs, you'll see that if you live within a half a mile of a transit station, that's close enough. You can walk. If you live within 2 miles, you can take a bike. Well, that's all very idealistic, as long as it's a sunny, cloudless day outside. What happened a few weeks ago here in Tennessee, where we had day after day after day of pouring rain? Do you really want to live in a walk-up transit-oriented community in the pouring rain when you have to be at work by 8:30 in the morning? What about the snowfall you have in the wintertime when you might slip and slide on the ice, but meanwhile, it's okay. You can take the bike because you live within 2 miles of the transit station. So nobody talks about this. In fact, I urge you, go to Thrive 2055's website and look at the pictures they have of what your community is going to look like. Everybody's got a smile. Everybody's wearing short sleeve shirts. They're all riding bicycles. And what happens when the cloudburst deluges these people and they can no longer get to work on time? So it's about having choices. There are people who would love to live like this, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's people who want to live like that for maybe 4 or 5 years. Then they want to move back out to the country again because they preferred that. That choice is gone. I had an interesting conversation with the director of planning for the state of New Jersey and his entire planning team. There's about 10, 12 planners around the table. And I asked a simple question. I said, okay, you want to put this sustainable development in here and build these urban communities. Oh, yeah, that's what we want to have. Okay. Well, what if we change our mind? What if I live in your urban center And I decide 5 years later, I want to move back out to the rural area again. I don't like this any longer. What happens? And they said, you can move if you want to, but you won't be able to afford it. I said, well, what do you mean? Why won't I be able to afford it? He says, because we're not going to be paying for the services out there. You're going to have to pay for themselves. We're not going to spend all this money fixing up rural roads out there. You're going to have to pay for the money to do this yourself. So if you want to live comfortably, you're going to have to live where we put you. That's not what I call choices, David.
Well, John Anthony, the author of Inside the World of Planning and the operator of SustainableFreedomLab.com, it seems to me that Thrive 2055 and the people who are behind it, the Clarion Group behind them, and others of their high class, are really a superior people. Their superiority is that they have doctorates in civil engineering and sociology and other kinds of things in marketing. And because they're superior, they want us to trust them. Implied in their scheme is a distrust of my listener. My listener is not viewed very highly, and his decisions are not viewed as really mattering. And what seems to be the operation is that there's a kind of emasculation of the marketplace, of the listener, that he needs to be obedient and compliant to some extent that he's not now, and for this plan to work. And that's because they know better. They are a greater people than we. They've read more books than we have. They have better insights. They have read in philosophy. They're the intelligentsia of the middle planning classes. And so they rightly want to take their role. They rightly want to serve the public. They are all about public service, John. And yet they don't trust my listener. My listener is not viewed with the esteem that I think you probably would give him and that I would give him. So talk a little bit about this dynamic of the superior person versus the common moldable person like me.
Well, when you talk about this idea of one person have so much more knowledge than the other, you have to ask yourself, what knowledge is it that you're talking about? Do you really know what my community is going to look like? Have you traditionally been able to project what my community will look like with any success anywhere else in the country? And the answer to that is no, they haven't been able to accomplish this. What these smart growth programs do is they build very lovely communities, and that's predictable, and it takes smart folks to do that. But what they've not been able to do is figure out who's going to live there, when they're going to live there, and whether or not they like it. And that's resulted in having to force people to move, or either to snowball them with these slick marketing programs. So I urge everyone to ask questions. That's all. Just ask questions. Maybe an urban development, an urbanized community is for you, and that's what you want. But understand what the implications are and what's going to happen to that. Go out and take a look at San Jose, California, where it's an average of $753,000 to buy a median-priced home, and they put up affordable housing for $680,000. Is that what you want for your community over here? Look at all the story before you dive into this program and say, "Oh, it's going to look beautiful."
Say something about Atlanta.
Atlanta has a present program. Atlanta is one of the most affordable metropolitan regions in the entire United States. In fact, it's very much like Portland, Oregon was back in the 1990s before smart growth took over. But right now, a group called the Atlanta Regional Council, ARC, would like to work with the Department of Transportation and regionalize not only Atlanta, but all the surrounding communities, going out into Jasper, going out into Marietta, Georgia. They want to create one big region. What will be accomplished by creating these walk-up communities is driving the cost of living so high that it will no longer be the mecca for people to go to, because you simply won't be able to afford to live there anymore. That's why these people have to start and push back against it.
Well, what else can we sum up what the argument is for the marketplace and against Thrive 2055, John Anthony?
The United States of America has been a global leader in economics for 200 years. And we haven't needed some kind of homogenized planning program to make that happen. In fact, it's happening because we don't have an homogenized program like that. So I would urge each person to go down to their planners, to their town hall meetings, meet with their public officials, and just keep your planning on a local basis. That's what's going to take to compete on a global basis. Is a lot of different minds coming from different positions, coming up with creative ideas. That's what makes America #1, not homogenization.
And so having a kind of skepticism of outsiders, outside experts, outside marketing arrangers, and the like.
Exactly.
Well, my listener wants to know how he can find you, John Anthony.
Well, actually, if you go to sustainablefreedomlab.org, you said .com, which I think
Thank you.
Can get there both ways, but sustainablefreedomlab.org, and that DVD that David was holding up a few minutes ago, you'll find that on there. And you'll be able to order that if you'd like. Or in the search box, type in Inside the World of Planning, and you can download a free a PDF document. It'll give you a whole glance inside the world of planning. I urge you to go there and check both of those out. That's sustainablefreedomlab.org.
Okay, that's sustainablefreedomlab.org. And John Anthony is the writer. Recently moved to McDonald, Tennessee, where the taxes are 1/11 of what he was paying as a resident in the state of Pennsylvania. John, thank you for joining my listener and me here at Nuganomics.com. My name is David Toulis. Our show is Nuganomics.com. We are here exploring the local economy and the free market. We want there to be more of both and a richer and deeper local economy where people who are free are more prosperous, more generous, more gracious, and richer.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If you have the DT, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. We've got a table here at Delia's and Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's and Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better pain-free life.
And Dr. Ross can help. At Ross Chiropractic, failure is not an option. For over 40 years, Dr. Ross, a graduate of the prestigious Palmer College of Chiropractic, prided himself in helping and healing. The Ross method of chiropractic care is unique in developing a treatment designed just for you. And Ross Chiropractic makes this promise to you. If he believes that he can't help relieve your pain, he will guide you to another health practitioner to assist you. Feel better now. You owe it to yourself. You really do. Call Dr. Ross now at 954-9591. That's 954-9591. And visit Dr. Ross at 7405 Shaliford Road, Suite 320. Ross Chiropractic, helping your body heal itself. Because when your spine's in line, you will feel fine. Call 954-9591. That's 954-9591 for Ross Chiropractic.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. The nation's new top law enforcement officer speaking out on the unrest in Baltimore, hard hit by rioting over the death of a man in police custody.
These senseless acts of violence are not only a grave danger to the community, and they must stop, but they are also counterproductive to the ultimate goal here, which is developing a respectful conversation within the Baltimore community and across the nation about the way our law enforcement officers interact with the residents that we are charged to serve and to protect.
Attorney General Loretta Lynch saying she's encouraged things were calmer last night. The jury in the trial of the man accused of kidnapping and killing Eitan Pate's deadlocked. Judge told members to keep deliberating. The New York boy, one of the first missing children to be featured on a milk carton. And Sprint Cup driver Danica Patrick losing longtime sponsor GoDaddy as it announces it won't return to NASCAR after this season. Fox News Blue Report, you decide.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nuganomics with David Toulis.
Do you know that police officers in many counties, many states, and cities have the protection of what's called LEOBOR? LEOBOR is just another word for Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. According to an essay at FEE, the free market defense organization, these systems of guarantees make it very difficult for police officers to be held to account as if in the same way that you or I would be held to an account if we had beaten someone to a pulp or broken his spine or other. And Walter Olson, in a post at FEE.org, says Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake has blamed Maryland's LEOBOR law for frustrating the investigation into the death of Freddie Gray while in police custody. Maryland's law provides that after, you will enjoy this, provides that after an incident, superiors cannot question an officer without the presence of a lawyer of the officer's choosing, and that officers have 10 days to line up representation. You see what's happening here? They have, of course, if you have 10 days to not to speak to anybody, to police, you can figure out your story, right? Most of the officers present have cooperated with the investigation of Gray's death, the city says, but at least one has not. While the details of LEOBOR laws vary from state to state, this essay cites another piece by a writer named Mike Riggs, and the headline of that piece is "Why Firing a Bad Cop is Damn Near Impossible." And there's a typical list of protections that are granted to our aristocracy, or should I say, to your aristocracy in blue. Unlike a member of the public, the officer gets a cooling off period before he has to respond to any questions. Unlike a member of the public, the officer under investigation is privy to the names of his complainants and their testimony against him before he is interrogated. Unlike a member of the public, the officer under investigation is to be interrogated at a reasonable hour with a union member present. Unlike a member of the public, the officer can only be questioned by one person during his interrogation. In other words, you can't good cop, bad cop, the cop when he's being questioned. For reasonable periods, which shall be timed to allow for such personal necessities and rest periods as are reasonably necessary. Do you hear the union feather bedding in that? Unlike a member of the public, the officer under investigation cannot be threatened with disciplinary action at any point during his interrogation. If he is threatened with punishment, whatever he says following the threat cannot be used against him. Under nearly every law enforcement Bill of Rights, the following additional privileges are granted. Their departments cannot publicly acknowledge that the officer is under investigation. If the officer is cleared of wrongdoing or the charges are dropped, the department may not publicly acknowledge that the investigation ever took place or reveal the nature of the complaint. So, in other words, there's a kind of automatic expungement of there having been an internal affairs investigation. The officer cannot, I did a quick look, by the way, before getting together with you online to see if I could find a Chattanooga, the police department, LEOBOR, that's LEOBR, Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it may be in the Public Policy Manual, which of course is a public document. If not readily findable, you, my listener, could file an open records request to obtain a copy of the special guarantees and privileges that local officers have. The officer cannot be questioned or investigated by non-government agents, which means no civilian review boards. If the officer is suspended as a result of the investigation, he must continue to receive full pay and benefits until his case is resolved. I think we've had that in the Chattanooga area. In most states, the charging department must subsidize the accused officer's legal defense. A violation of any of the above rights can result in dismissal, not of the officer, but of the charges against him. Maryland was the first state to pass a Leobor way back in 1972. And by now, many states have followed, invariably after lobbying from police unions and associations. Often the bills are sponsored by, guess who? Guess whom? Republicans, who seem to forget their normal skepticism of public employees as an interest group when uniformed services are involved. Leobors provide officers a kind of legal insulation. Prison and jail guards are often covered by these laws as well. In scandals of corrections administration, such as the state-run Baltimore jail, which had a huge one in which the Maryland Leobor law was implicated, are often hard to investigate because of the law's barriers. Union contracts often add further layers of insulation from discipline. And that's a sketch from this story. Also says, aware of Baltimore's long and still unfolding history of police misconduct, Mayor Rawlings Blake and the state ACLU and other groups have called for a partial rollback of Maryland's law enforcement officer Bill of Rights. Yet its defenders are well organized, and reform bills have not made it out of committee in the now concluded state legislative session. Meanwhile, Pennsylvania's House voted unanimously last year to enact such a bill. It's called the Correctional Officers Bill of Rights, as if all these points were not controversial. That's Walter Olson making these comments. He is a fellow at the Cato Institute's Center for Constitutional Studies. Well, my name is David Toulis, and our show is Newgonomics.com, and we've been exploring how to prosper amid an effort by people with a regional perspective to delocalize local economy, to make local economy a kind of astroturf economy rather than one of rich grass, which I think is much more appealing and is sustainable. The question is, what is sustainable? Is the visible hand of the state through state-connected organizations? Is that where we'll find prosperity? Is that where prices will find their true place? Or will prices find their true place in the marketplace, which is free, unimpeded, and free from intervention by parties that have special favor and special rights in the law? Remember, a license is permission to do something which is otherwise illegal or unlawful or a wrong or a tort. And the more licenses we have, the more licensing regimes that we have that originate with the civil authority, the less liberty we have, and the more corruption inevitably follows. You have not a free market, but you have a kind of a corrupt, owned marketplace. It's also called crony capitalism or oligarchism, and it is managed. The economy is managed and run by a few people at the top, or maybe not at the top, but they're off to the side somewhere. Very influential individuals. Often industrialists or merchants or people in the banking sector or sometimes in public office. And they make all kinds of decisions ahead of time and set the tone for things. They set the tone with their own money and with a lot of charitable donations often, but they in fact exercise an influence that meets with their place, right? And it's not to say that we can't have important people. It's not to say that being rich is a problem or a sin. We need to have rich people. That's what everyone would like to be before they die, would have wealth, have an estate to pass on to your children. But what we are concerned about is that there need to be a kind of a democratic interest in capitalism, that there be capitalism for all, right? That when you have the little thing that moves from left to right, I have a scheme that shows where liberty is. If liberty is on the right, on the right side, it's the individual has it. If it's over on the left side, the state has it. And so as you move the little knob between the 2 points, where do you want the liberty to reside? If you have it in our modern system, which in a financialized, nationalized, credit-based economy, the knob of liberty is way on the side of the state. And what we'd like to do over time, I guess through Reformation, through the effects, the salting effects of Christianity on culture, there would be over time, over maybe several generations, the moving of that knob toward the individual, once again toward the individual and the family, where you have a real prosperity. Prosperity is not generated in the currency exchange markets at the Mercantile Exchange in Chicago, right? There are billions and billions of dollars that travel back and forth every day, bets made on gyrations in paper money. Nothing is produced in this den of this casino, which is the modern financialized economy. We have a note that the Federal Reserve Board, the Open Market Committee, as it's called, says it's not going to do anything about its suppression of the rate of interest, and it's taking away former clues as to when it will maybe raise interest rates to a point where interest is not free, where money is no longer free, because that's what it is now. Money is now free. You don't have to, there's nothing you have to do for it. And since we have a world, since the whole globe, every nation in the world is on a paper money standard, you have wildly gyrating differences among fiat currencies. And much capital, much wealth has gone into playing that casino market. Money that's not being put to good use, right? Money that's not applying human labor to natural resources, which is where wealth comes from. Think of farming. That's what farming is. That's what mining is. Coal mining, gold mining, bauxite mining, farming. These are all pictures of the real economy, where solid things are produced and sold, and from them are made things, right? Creating steel by mining, that's where wealth comes from, the making of products. And we live in a time where there are no signals anymore, and the Fed is a great conspirator in that event. It's a conspiracy against you, a conspiracy against local economy, against having in your billfold, you, my listeners, billfold, a medium of exchange which is no longer fixed. It's not fixed by any language on the bill to real value, either to gold or to silver. And so it's called a fiat currency, and we are, all of us, the hapless victims of it. And it makes local economy very difficult. It makes, not impossible, but very difficult. And so I think what has to happen is that we need to be involved in local economy, and enough to ignore what the good people are doing to destroy the country, because they can't stop, right? They can't stop destroying the country, and so we are in a bad way nationally. That's why my argument for you is that you have a small business, and if you don't have an idea for your own small business like I do for mine, right? My small business is Hot News Talk Radio. I'm the owner of this station, and make it a service to you, my listener. If you don't have an idea for your own business, then you should contact the best man in Chattanooga to help you. His name is Bruce Krebs. He runs Entrepreneur Source, and he will help get you into a franchise that's suitable for your background, your interests, your gifts, your capital availability. If you don't have capital, he will tell you where to get that, where you can borrow easily for it. And we'll tell you how you can use your 401k, by the way, in your small business. And Entrepreneur Source is a very important contributor to local economy and local prosperity. The number is 875-5621, 875-5621. If you want to prosper in having the best printing jobs you can without problems, and laudable printing company, I want to recommend Advantage Printing, which I use. Advantage is in Brainerd, right near the Belvoir Light on Brainerd Road, just past the Bilo. Alan Jones will handle for you your design if you need that kind of help. He will do digital printing, offset printing for big jobs, and will do mailing services and large format services as well. Bulk mailing, you can save on that. He knows all the rules about your nonprofit stamp. Call Alan Jones at Advantage Printing, 629-1800, 629-1800. I've been spending a good deal of time in the law books lately. I've been reading up on constitutional rights, and I've been doing a lengthy analysis of a statute. And in a nutshell, my argument is that the driver's license statute in Tennessee has not been overturned by any lawyer in the state. No lawyer. I think lawyers don't read laws. I just think they don't read laws very carefully, because when I read this a few months ago, it just struck me how as a man with a master's degree in English, I could understand what the point was, and I could understand the vague suggestion that had been laid by a friend in my ear, that in fact the operation of a car in Tennessee is of great benefit to Hispanics, our Guatemalan, Honduran, Mexican friends in the Chattanooga area can really drive here without a driver's license because it's not required. Now, this I know is a controversial statement, so I will flag it that way and say, hey, this is David Toulis's legal analysis of the statute. It's in Title 55, Chapter 50, and that statute and another one that's based upon it, which is called the Exhibit on Demand statute, are written in such a way, I'd like to suggest, to not put the legislature in a bad light. The legislature would never intentionally remove, reduce, delete a constitutional right, would it? No, it would never do that. It would never take a right that you had and say, we're legislating this activity now, the use of cars, and we are destroying a right. They would never have done that. And when it passed, it was understood that, well, no rights are being lost here in the creation and the exercise of police power upon the road, right? That's what the driver's license is. The driver's license is an exercise of police power, and which is legitimately belonging to the state government. And there's an important case that it was decided in 1939 called Sullins v. Butler that I've thought a lot about, and I've enjoyed reading it, and I've gotten a lot out of it. But it points out that the driver's license system is in equity. In other words, it's in commerce, and it doesn't exactly point it out, but it's said that this case is a case inequitable. It's a lawsuit in defense of this man's use of the road in equity. In other words, it's in a contractual arrangement between the driver who broke the law and the state acting as a state merchant, if you will. The state is a businessman. And because we live in an age of commercial government, this is not an outrageous thing to say. We know that the state, though it's wholly impure in its conception sometimes in our minds, it really is just a business that is constantly seeking new markets, often by the use of force. And here's a bit of the reasoning behind why we have driver's licenses, why this regime in the administrative realm exists. And I'll read this quote here, but the question is, does the existence of this whole regime and this department and all the enforcers of these laws, does that mean that the Hispanics in Chattanooga are somehow wrong? Are they involved in a sin to not have driver's licenses? Are they involved in a real crime? And the answer is no. And what we need to have, we need to have Jerry Summers defend a Hispanic man based on the way the statute is written. He just has to read the cases that I'm just about starting to read now, and he can make a name for himself yet once more. He's a local lawyer and kind of a hotshot lawyer, and I think he would have an interest in this suggestion. But the idea of there's the probable inability of some motor vehicle owners to pay the damages resulting from negligent operation is stressed by counsel as making the statute punitive rather than protective, and not as affording the equal protection designed by the Constitution. The statutory punishment should make the impecunious operator more careful, and thus tend to protect the public. So in other words, you have a driver's license system to punish people who are careless because it protects the public. Further protection is secured by the statute. In this sense, the public will either will be either compensated for such damages or no longer exposed thereto by persons unable to pay. The financial responsibility alone is not a test of constitutional equality. This very contention against a New York statute requiring security from persons who operated motor vehicles for hire was found wanting, et cetera, et cetera. The person who is execution proof will naturally operate automobile more carelessly and negligently when he knows that the only effect of any damage occasioned thereby will be a civil action. So you see, here's the rationale for the driver's license scheme. If it were left up to people to have to sue to recover damages after an accident, well, then that would encourage everybody to be careless. That's the reason you have the operation of police powers over drivers, right? All these licensed drivers agreed with this argument that we have to have regulation for public safety. On the other hand, the judge says when he is conscious of the fact that if he incurs liability by his negligence and has not the financial ability to discharge, same that his driver's license will be revoked, he will necessarily operate his vehicle with more care and circumspection. The enforcement of this statute will also have the effect of depriving a number of incompetent persons from operating motor vehicles upon the highways of the state. So having a driver's license regime enhances public safety. How? It keeps incompetent people off the roads, and it keeps people more careful because they know if they cause a damage, they cannot just incur a lawsuit against them for the loss of the other party, but they can incur the wrath of the state, which could revoke the driver's license and thereby keep people off the road. And at the very end of this opinion, which is called Sullins v. Butler, came out in 1940. The case was decided in December of 39, just before the war. A thoughtful consideration of this statute convinces us that it is a wise and wholesome law. In some instances, it may work hardships, as most laws do. But when tested by the greatest good to the greatest number, it impresses us as being reasonable and beneficent. No question was raised by the defense. Okay. And here after this, there's a sentence or two more, or there are two more sentences that talk about the case in this decision being inequity. So what that means is because it's inequity, it's by application. You apply for a driver's license, into a relationship with the state, you then have an obligation to it to obey its rules, which are designed for public safety. They're designed to keep people careful, to keep them owing to the state and, of course, to other drivers and people on the walking along the side of the street. You're careful because you know you could be sued for damage. You're careful because you know you could lose your driver's license and not be able to drive anymore. So there's a punitive aspect to this statute. But what happened, I think, in the writing of the statute is that the legislature was wise enough and careful enough to not offend anybody who wanted to drive by and to use a car on the public road for a private purpose by exercising his constitutional rights. And that is something you say, well, that's just such a minor detail, David Toulis. But think about it. Our country's changing. We're going to become more Hispanic here in the South. The United States will probably go bankrupt at some point. Tennessee may suffer a financial disaster as well. There are some hidden financial problems in state governments in many parts of the country that have not been published, and there's a change in accounting standards that's being imposed. It's imminent upon us now, and that will show that many states are effectively bankrupt. Maybe not Tennessee's, but we face changes. And we face changes in culture and population. And as we look forward to the time past the debacle, right, the time on the other side of the national financial crisis, we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? And I would say we want to have more liberty, more constitutional rights, and more freedom. And that if we can show ourselves to be that we are a state in which there's really a great deal of liberty, guess what? We'll bring more people here. We will become a more populous state. We'll bring people here who really want to work. All the Guatemalans that Roy Jones talks about on his strawberry farm in Valley Head, Alabama, they are the hardest working people. They're here because they want to work. Sometimes they have 2 and 3 jobs. If a man can't make it to pick strawberries, Roy Jones says he'll have a nephew or a cousin come and pull. They are reliable, hardworking people. We need more people like that because public schools and modern media and factory farming has decimated the Anglo-Saxon population, which is a thin shadow of its former self. Well, we are in a free state, and we need to live that way. And I think we need to live in terms of God's grace. I think we need to live in terms of God's providence, and to be careful and prudent people. Local economy is built on character, and we need to have more exercises of that. And I thank you, my listener, for giving me a few minutes of your time here at Nuganomics.com. Our station is Hot News Talk Radio. Support my advertisers, okay?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
NASCAR being brought to you by River City Auto Exchange, 5503 Highway 153 in Hickson.
Check it out this Sunday live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
News Talk 1240.
Pure, honest, fair, and respect. Just some words that come to mind when you think about how you want to be treated. And that's how you're treated at Rivermont Pure. Rivermont